Hello, welcome back to the Path to Better A1C podcast. I am your host, Jenny Pena, National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach, Diabetes Prevention Program Lifestyle Coach, CEO and founder of Gen B Coaching, and creator of the A1C Reset Protocol, a signature 12-week health coaching program specially designed for individuals that want to balance their blood sugar, lower their A1C, prevent diabetes, and restore their energy levels. Now, today we're going to talk about an amazing topic, and it has to do with a very frustrating truth. And it is when your focus is fading and your brain feels foggy. It is not just because you're getting older or you have too much on your plate. Brain fog, poor concentration, low mental energy, they are all often early signs of blood sugar imbalance, especially if you're dealing with prediabetes, diabetes, insulin resistance. So, today we're going to talk about these. We're going to explore why your brain might be struggling to focus, how your blood sugar affects mental clarity, what both high and low glucose levels do to your brain, and what do you need to do to feel sharp, clear, and focused again, right? Now, let's talk about what is brain fog really? What is it? Well, brain fog is a real experience, even though it's not a clinical diagnosis. And it typically shows up as either trouble focusing or finishing your thoughts, forgetting simple tasks, feeling mentally off, low energy, and even struggling with memory and word recall. And for many people, it could be a metabolic issue, not just a mental one. And there's an article from Cleveland Clinic that talks about what causes brain fog. Now, what is this relationship between brain fog and blood sugar, right? Because the truth is that your brain runs on glucose. And this is why I am so against these very extreme diets that will eliminate carbs altogether. Because guess what? Your brain actually needs glucose. It uses about 20% of your daily supply. Now, but it needs that glucose to be steady, though. When your blood sugar crashes, your brain doesn't have fuel. And that's when you're starting to feel foggy, dizzy, mentally slow, irritable. And then when your blood sugar is too high, well, over time it damages blood vessels in the brain. It reduces the oxygen that will actually go in there. So, do you see how all of these blood sugar roller coaster that I even spoke on the previous episode, how it impacts all these different systems and parts of your body? So here we have when it's low, look what the brain is being affected by. And then when it's too high, then you get these memory lapses, the slower thinking, and poor attention, right? Like all of these things are happening, and it is all based on those blood sugar spikes and crashes. Now, why prediabetes and insulin resistance will actually make this worse? Well, when your body is insulin resistant, and I've mentioned that in several episodes in the past, that it is that constant spike and crash with your blood sugars. That is what typically will develop that insulin resistance. Your body just gets to the point that it becomes more resistant to the sensitivity that needs to have for insulin. So it struggles to get that glucose into your cells to use them as energy. And that includes brain cells, right? So it means your brain might be running on empty, even when blood sugar is technically high. So this explains why people with insulin resistance and prediabetes, they feel a bit more foggy, they experience concentration issues, and they most likely feel wired but tired. Um, and when you think about all of this, you start seeing how the focus and how feeling like this would actually lead you to getting more carbs as your body's mechanism to is really trying to get energy. So there are other triggers, though. There are other things that will impact brain fog. It's not only your sugar levels, but they all combined. Let's say that they create the perfect storm. So one of them, right, like the blood sugar is not the only culprit. So if you're experiencing this, it may be blood sugar, it may be blood sugar and a few other things. Now, here are four other factors that I want to mention that can make brain fog a bit worse. The first one is stress. I know, I feel like I talk about stress at every single episode, but it is so important and sometimes not even acknowledged as a factor. There's a lot of heavy focus on nutrition and exercise and not much on stress and sleep. So, stress raises your cortisol levels. This spikes your blood sugar and creates also a crash after. So, there are clients that I have dealt with that their food appeared to be very balanced, their exercise routine appeared to be following the CDC guidelines. However, they had such high levels of stress that their blood sugar was elevated and it was very hard. And we had to focus a lot on implementing these tools to balance that stress. So don't dismiss stress, it is a very important element. Now, the next one that I would like to talk about has to do with poor sleep. I know that insulin resistance, if you have poor sleep for at least a couple of nights in a row, that typically can do it and will start shifting your body in terms of going towards insulin resistance. And now, poor sleep can also interrupt that memory storage and repair. Our body needs that sleep and needs to go through all of the different cycles so that it can restore and repair. Um, the other thing has to do with nutrient gaps. And I actually started a couple of weeks ago a series about supplements, somewhat veered towards spring, but it is in my blog. And it talks about a lot of different supplements. And some of the ones that I'm going to mention, some of the nutrient gaps that I'm going to mention now are included there. So the B vitamins, right? Like they're great for energy, B complex, magnesium, omega 3s, and vitamin D, they all affect brain performance. Now, I will say, and I'm going to disclose, please, before you start any supplementation, talk to your doctor so that you can evaluate if that, like the dosage, the frequency, the timing, um, I would rather have you incorporate these things in forms of food that are natural. But if you need supplementation or if you're concerned, talk to your medical provider, please. Just because sometimes these supplements can even interact with some of your medications. So please be mindful of that. Now, the next element, it has to do with inflammation. And I'm actually going to develop a series on this just because inflammation seems to be the source or the actually root cause of a lot of the illnesses that we suffer, not just diabetes, right? Um, and again, it comes from having a lot of processed foods and it interferes with how your blood sugar gets transported. It interferes with a lot of different systems in your body. And and I tell my clients, right, like especially if they have um some sort of illness that involves that is connected to inflammation. And I tell them, that inflammation, the way that you eliminate is including a lot more fresh or frozen. I don't ditch the frozen vegetables and fruits. Incorporate things that are more on their natural state because they don't have a lot of these chemicals or things to preserve and other elements that actually increase inflammation. So that is something that is key. Now, I know that I mentioned pretty much, okay, being foggy, this is how you'll feel. These is probably the culprits. Now, what can you do? And I always do that in all of my episodes, right? What can you do to feel that your mind is clear and somewhat fix this brain fog? Well, start eating for blood sugar balance, and I cover that a lot. Include protein, fiber, healthy fats in meals. Avoid skipping meals, especially breakfast. Yes, I know, intermittent fasters. You love your intermittent fasting. I always approach everything with a learner's mind and an open mind. But the more clients that I work with, the more tend to see that, especially for individuals with insulin resistance and blood sugar dysregulation, I'm not sure if intermittent fasting is the best way. I think balance is key. Making sure you're having balanced meals and not skipping meals is actually, in my opinion, in my experience and what I've seen, has been more beneficial. Now, the other thing is limit refined carbs, right? Like these spike your blood sugar. And you don't need to revamp your entire food pantry and everything. Start slow. Start with breakfast. Start making sure that you're eating a high protein breakfast. Then, if there is a bread or a pasta or something like that that you like, check the other options and see how you can incorporate something that is higher in nutrients, higher in fiber, that is more nutrient dense, and start swapping things. It doesn't have to be drastic. These small changes actually do impact positively. It creates huge success. Now, we talked about how to eat for blood sugar balance. Now, support your nervous system. And this is connected with stress, right? Use breath work, journaling, light movement. It all helps with cortisol levels. Breath work, there's so many methods out there. But if all else fails, just take a minute and breathe and just focus on your breathing. Focus on even feeling yourself breathing, being very mindful of it for a minute. There are methods called the box breathing. There is a 478 that Dr. Whale um, has made very famous. And there are a lot of videos on YouTube and resources and articles explaining the benefits of this. The same thing with journaling. Journaling is amazing, especially if you feel that you're constantly worried and concerned about your to do list, things that are coming. Writing down, planning your day, knowing exactly what is going to come in terms of your schedule, write them down. If you're having certain emotions, write them down. It helps you process them. Now, again, having maybe a 5 or a 10 minute mental reset between tasks, that also help. And that's where even you can combine the breath work, or even light movement with that mental reset, right? If you're taking that mental movement, that moment to just disconnect from all these activities, listen to a nice, relaxing music, listen to a podcast, go out for a walk. All of these things help. And then the third element, get better sleep. And I know we're busy. I know, and I am sometimes guilty of that. That I always say, I am going to go to bed at a certain time, and somehow I start doing things, and before you know it, it's way past my bedtime. Prioritize it. Keeping that consistent bedtime, trying to avoid screens at least 30 minutes before bed, and even adding a lot of the magnesium rich foods like spinach and pumpkin seeds and dark chocolate, which is actually very good for diabetics. Um, One side note, diabetics tend to be low on the magnesium. So exploring that with your doctor and knowing if you need supplements or if you need to make sure that you incorporate that in your diet, please go ahead and talk to your provider about it. So after saying all of this, what are our takeaways, right? Brain fog is not it's often a blood sugar issue. It's not just a brain issue. And we already know that both high and low glucose levels impair focus and memory. So if I don't give you any other reasons why this should be important, maybe this is a reason why it should be important. Now, insulin resistance, it actually blocks the glucose from getting into the brain cells. Another reason to make sure you address this. Sleep and stress issues worsen your brain fog because of all the hormonal changes. But stabilizing your blood sugar, it actually will support your brain and it will lead to clearer and steadier focus. So if you have been a little off, forgetful, foggy, note that it may not be just stress or age. Your blood sugar could be trying to tell you something. So I have amazing news. I would love for you to join me to the Energy Fix workshop that I have scheduled and is absolutely free for Thursday, May 29th at 1 p.m. Eastern. I will cover the root causes of energy dips and brain fog, how blood sugar plays a key role in mental clarity, and my simple 3-step framework to feel like yourself again. To register, go to www.jennypena.com/workshop. And if you have any questions, feel free to message me. Message me on Instagram if you would like, or send me an email. All the information is in the show notes. And you can do that also through my webpage. And as a side note, remember that I have a blood sugar balancing snack list that is absolutely free as a resource. You can go to subscribepage.io/snacks and you can download them there. So, have an amazing rest of your week. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you haven't, please subscribe. If you have found this beneficial and if you know somebody that may be beneficial, it may be a benefit for them, forward this to them as well. Have an amazing rest of your week. Until the next one.